Hello, everyone. I'm Happy Caldwell, and I want to thank you for joining us for this special edition of Arkansas Alive. One of the most important rights that we have as American citizens is the right to vote. But the key is to be informed about what you're voting for. So who better to share with us the facts of upcoming elections than Jerry Cox from Family Council and Dr. Jim Legrone from Family Council Action Committee. They're with me today, so stay tuned. Arkansas Live starts right now. Thank you, gentlemen.
It's
Jerry,
our pleasure, always a pleasure to be on.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. And Jim,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you for coming back.
Fabulous to be back with you, sir.
Let me give you the credentials of these two gentlemen. First of all, Jerry Cox is founder and president of Family Council. He began Family Council after a successful effort to amend the Arkansas Constitution to prevent the use of public funds for abortion. That's tantamount. He's the founder of Education Alliance, the Arkansas Physicians Resource Council, and the Arkansas Justice Institute. Dr. Jim Legrone, field director for these amendments under Family Council Action Committee. He's the voice of these amendments. And here is something important that we feel like VTN wanted to bring to you. And I have asked them to explain these amendments. We're going to deal with two. We may not be able to do it in one program, but we're going to deal with two. The most talked about and controversial is issue 4, which has to do with the, I don't understand the language here, safe adult use of cannabis amendment. Safe use of marijuana legally. That'd be like saying, I want you to take this bottle of poison, but I want you to take it responsibly and safely. So we want to inform you. Our job is not to tell you how to vote. Our job is to inform you of what you're voting for. It's up to you as to how you vote. And so we're going to talk about that. And then the Arkansas Religious Freedom Amendment. Two very important amendments. But, gentlemen, I think you'll agree with me and you'll jump right in here. The advertisement that we're seeing about, let's just take Amendment 4 first, about legal safe use of marijuana is, first of all, misleading. Secondly, it's a lie. And thirdly, there's confusion. How can you tell people, if you vote for this issue 4, for the safe use of and legal use of marijuana, that we are going to take all the money that comes in and we're going to fund the police? And I would love to have a policeman here with us to see what they have to say about it. But how can I convince you that there's going to be safe use of this? And what the main thrust in some of the ads I've seen is they're not even talking about the effects of marijuana and what it's going to do. They just say, this is a way to fund the police.
Well, what they did is, it's all a big lie, is really what it is. And might I say, if we depend on campaign ads to decide how we're going to vote, we have missed it from the get-go. Because all those campaign ads are suspect. Now, having said that, I have read this marijuana amendment at least probably 5 or 6 times, and I have studied what it will actually do if it passes. And here's the message that I would say loud and clear. There might be some folks out there who kind of like the idea of legalizing marijuana for recreational purposes. But I say this, you're not going to like this amendment because of what it does. And let me back that up by saying the most ardent marijuana supporters in the state of Arkansas, Melissa Fultz, who championed medical marijuana for years, and David Couch, who wrote the medical marijuana amendment are going around the state of Arkansas working against this terrible, terrible amendment because it is a huge monopoly coming in and writing itself into our Constitution. Imagine this, the marijuana industry pooled its money, they wrote an amendment to favor themselves, and then they hired canvassers to go out and get signatures and put it on the ballot. And so the tax rate, for example, it's only about half what it is in Colorado. You know why? Because the marijuana industry wrote it. They took away almost all the regulation of it. The legislature can't regulate it one bit. You know why? Because the marijuana industry wanted it that way. They don't want to be regulated. And I could sit here all day long just about and give you reasons to be against this thing, even if you kind of like the idea of legalizing marijuana. And of course, we don't like the idea of legalizing it, but people need to know the truth.
Yeah. Jim?
Oh, I would love to. I was just thinking that word safe, the word safe, marijuana. So let's talk about Spotsylvania, Virginia. This happened just last week. NBC Washington reported this, and what happened is a mother took her 4-year-old son over to what is essence is a pot party. And so they had their party, and they had brownies and they had cookies and they smoked, but they had gummy bears as well. Gummy bears look like candy to children. And so he took them. That little 4-year-old got him. She waited for a while. She found him unconscious. She called in. She told them that ER that he had only had half of one. But the truth is they don't know how many they had. So for the safe use of legal marijuana in that city, that little 4-year-old died from THC poisoning. That was just last week. Last week I was in an Arkansas town, and they had had a big scandal at the school that day. And what had happened was a young man, it's called dabbing, which is a new term for me. I've had to learn far too much about this stuff, you know. But dabbing, and so you take about this much and you heat it up, it's liquid form, you take it, it gives you almost an instant high. So he collapses on the floor, there's going to be lawsuits, and they haven't even settled on all the charges. And he did that at school, and that's where marijuana is not legal. When they say safe marijuana, that does not exist. It hurts children, it hurts teenagers, it hurts adults. It's going to kill people on the highway. We all know that. They know that, the other side.
And see, when they wrote this amendment, they took away, Jim and Pastor Caldwell, they took away the restrictions on the amount of THC you can put into a food product. Under the medical marijuana amendment, it said 10 milligrams per serving. Well, they just erased this. And so that means that they can put 100% THC into gummy bears, brownies, cookies, soft drinks, anything you can consume. And that's what killed that little child that Jim is talking about. And you mark my words, if this passes, the same kind of thing is going to happen here in Arkansas.
How many lives are worth this? Look at the cost.
Well, that's my whole point. The advertising, nobody's looking at the lives.
That's right.
They're looking at the lies, which is we're going to fund the police, we're going to create thousands of jobs. Now, my next question is, you work with the legislature very closely and have for years. Is the legislature, the state legislature of the state of Arkansas, are they involved in this at all?
No. In fact, they are opposing it. A letter came out yesterday from 67 out of 100 House members. They said, vote against issue 4, vote against the marijuana measure. The Senate did the same thing, and they said, vote against it, because they know how out of control this is going to be. The legislature will not be able to zone this and keep it out of good neighborhoods. They will not be able to regulate the amount of THC and all these other things. They won't be able to raise the taxes on it. And see, in Colorado, our tax rate here will be about half what it is in Colorado. Colorado is about 30%, but they still say they're losing money on it out there. You know why? Because of all the mess that it creates with homelessness, drug addiction, and all that. And I get really angry, gentlemen, when people say that marijuana is harmless. That makes me so angry. A lady came by my office to pick up some material just the other day, and she told me the story about her son who was at U of A in Fayetteville traveling down I-49 to meet the family for a family get-together, and he never lived to get there. You know why? Because a man got on the freeway going the wrong direction. He was high on marijuana and alcohol, and he hit her son and killed him there on the freeway. Now, that young man was not using marijuana or alcohol, but that killed him. It killed him. And if you want to see more of that, then go ahead and vote for this. They want to talk about benefits. There really are no benefits from this. It's all loss, but they'll never tell you the loss. They only want to try to trick you into voting for it.
Because of the tax revenue. Now, another question. If the legislature is not involved in this and doesn't have to sign off or approve it, then how does the marijuana industry get this issue on the ballot?
Well, what they were able to do is they were able to write the amendment themselves using shrewd lawyers, and they paid people to circulate petitions, and they gathered a required number of signatures, and then it goes on the ballot.
Okay.
And so they are, in my view, abusing the initiative process to write themselves into the Arkansas Constitution. They are giving themselves a monopoly. They're going to take over the CBD oil business. They're going to take over the industrial hemp business. They're going to own it all because they've written themselves into the Constitution.
Seems like to me our state legislatures, state offices, Secretary of State, Attorney General, whoever's involved in this process, the legislature should come up with some kind of safeguard to protect industries from doing this. They're using the procedures that's set up.
Right.
But the end result is a destruction.
Yeah.
You told our audience years ago when the lottery came up that the money that was supposed to go for tuitions for students would not materialize the way it was sold. How much of that money goes to students?
You know, I will say I was wrong. The amount is lower than I thought it would be. It's hovering around 17 cents on the dollar is where it's hovering. So, you know, at least 80 cents on the dollar goes someplace else. It doesn't go to the kids.
Yeah.
And the same thing will be true with this marijuana measure.
Absolutely.
It's a stipend.
Yeah,
Jim,
it's a stipend.
At the end of the year for the police. Now, every stipend I ever got wasn't much money.
Right.
It was not a salary increase.
Right.
It wasn't permanent. It's just, we got this left over, so here's a little bit of money for you.
It's not going to fund more police officers.
Well, they're going to need more police officers.
Yes, they do, and they're
Yes.
going to need them with this.
Yes.
I talked to a chief of police, one of the larger cities in Arkansas. He told me this. I love the phrase because I'd never thought of it this way. He told me that every time he watches those commercials, he gets mad.
Yeah.
That have the police in them. He said they're trying to bribe the officers to support. And he used that word bribe. And that's exactly what it is. That's why they did the campaign. That's why they thought that up.
Well, again, to our viewers, you know this ministry and you know these two gentlemen and their organizations. We are trying to educate you, inform you as to what the secular media is not going to do. And the talk show hosts and the talking heads and the newspaper reporters, they're not going to tell you all this. And we have a responsibility to inform you, not to tell you how to vote, but to inform you what you're going to be voting for, what you're going to be voting against. Psalm 11, verse 3 says, if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? Well, if you look that up, which I have, the foundations refer to moral, political, and economic foundations. So if these foundations are destroyed, what will the righteous do? So that's my question to you, right from the scriptures. What are you going to do? It's up to you. If all the Christians would vote biblically according to the scriptures, you could pretty much stop a lot of the things that come into our state that steal, kill, and destroy. So the question is, what are you going to do? Amen?
Amen, brother.
Amen.
I'm wearing my sticker today.
You voted?
Because I voted yesterday.
All right.
I had a wonderful privilege on there. People asked me walking in. I was very nice on my polling place. But I did notice something that really surprised me on the ballot. dealing with marijuana. So I got to the marijuana issue, and it was real easy which way I was going to vote. Who in Arkansas really, if you love people and love this state, you won't vote for this. So anyway, I scrolled down.
Jim, that would be, that some people would consider that condemnation.
It is, totally.
You're trying to put me under pressure here.
No. I mean, you know, if you're going to harm people, who would want to vote to harm one child, much less as many is going to happen? But anyway, when I got to the marijuana issue on the ballot itself, it was more than a paragraph. And I kept scrolling it down, and so I was thinking, if you have any doubts of how you want to vote, just start reading that.
Yeah.
Because they have most of the amendments, Jerry, which I got tired of going. It just kept scrolling, because it's 11 pages long if you print it off.
It's about 3,000 words long is how long this amendment is. And it makes wholesale changes to the medical marijuana amendment that we already have. It takes away a bunch of the safeguards about packaging to protect children and other things about it. And let me reemphasize this. If this passes, you cannot fix it. No local government can regulate it. No legislature can regulate it. No political subdivision of the state of Arkansas can do anything about this amendment. You know why? Because the amendment says no one else can regulate this except the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board, a 5-member appointed board that's supposed to be there to oversee alcohol. Now they are being given authority over the entire marijuana industry in Arkansas, and don't tell me they're going to be able to do it right and keep it safe and all that.
You know my testimony, the viewers do. I was in the liquor business, wholesale liquor business, before I got saved. And I called on all the package stores, lounges, hotels in Arkansas. In Pulaski County. And I'm very familiar with the ABC board. We had to deal with them, work with them.
Right.
I told this story one time about, and we may have to go to a second program, folks, because we're not going to get through with all this in one program. We were visiting a distillery as part of our sales promotion. In this distillery, we went through the process, and they came out, and there's a big, huge stainless steel tank. And the guy told us, he said, now this is after we've finished brewing, aging, whatever. We put all of this whiskey in this stainless steel tank ready for bottling. But he said, before we can bottle it and empty it out, the powers to be come in and tell us how much taxes we're going to have to pay to the federal government. $1 million per tank.
Wow.
Now, money talks. Power talks, influence talks. After Prohibition was over, there are certain distilleries that had 14 years, because Prohibition was 14 years. Prohibition, they had 14 years, 14-year-old aged whiskey. And, of course, they were selling it illegally, but now they could sell it legally, as long as they paid the taxes. So there is money connected to this, but it's not going to benefit the state of Arkansas.
That's right.
It's not going to benefit the police.
That's right.
The police are thinking, why are you doing this to us? I mean, we're going to double our... When I was in the liquor business, I learned, even as a non-Christian, I became a Christian right at the end. I was in the liquor business 6 years. And right at the end of it, I got saved, got out of the business, got delivered from my product and my job, and God called me into the ministry. Now, I hear these campaigns, drink responsibly. That's, you can't drink responsibly because 80, 86, 90 proof whiskey removes the responsibility.
And see, with this marijuana measure, what you're doing is you're allowing an industry whose entire business model turns on what? Creating more addicts.
Right.
Creating more drug addicts.
More customers.
That's it.
Right.
They can't make profit unless they create more. And so you're allowing them, if you vote for issue 4, allowing them to write themselves into the Constitution and have a blank check to come in here and create more addicts. And you cannot create more addicts without targeting kids. because older people die off and all that.
That's right.
So you got to target kids. And so that's the kind of scourge that issue 4 will be if it passes. And people need to wake up and realize that. See, if this was good for police, don't you think the police organizations would be out beating the drum for it?
Yeah.
But they're not.
No.
If this was good for business, don't you think the Chamber of Commerce would be for it? But they're against it.
Yeah.
If this was good for farmers, then Farm Bureau would be for it. But no, Farm Bureau is against it. I was at a meeting the other night at the governor's mansion. He called together business, industry, faith leaders, all kinds of folks, 48 people around a great big table at the governor's mansion, and every single entity there said issue 4 will hurt Arkansas. And it started with the Chamber and Farm Bureau, the school superintendents, the drug rehab people, the trucking association, the building contractors, the faith community. It was unanimous that this is awful. The only people for this is the marijuana industry.
Right.
That's it.
Well, there's another little bit of the marijuana industry that we want our folks to understand. Now, the drug business, as you know, is filled with legal, upstanding citizens, of course.
Right.
They wrote, and it's going to be chiseled in the Constitution, as Jerry was saying, that you could buy into a dispensary without a background check. We're going to allow drug business without a background check, 5% or less. So who's going to be purchasing that 5% that doesn't want the background check?
Well, and not only that, Jim, you don't even have to be a resident of Arkansas.
Right, so now out-of-state money is going to come.
You can live out of the country and own the farms or stores. Wonder what that sounds. What does that sound like?
Who is that?
But that's what it allows.
That's what it does.
If you the advertisement for the casinos, it says in the little fine print on the TV ad. Of course, I know why the TV stations take these ads and run these ads.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They make money off of this. They're making a lot of money off of these ads. Why would they want to say, no, we're not going to run those because they'll hurt the state of Arkansas? Because they're controlled by the money. They can charge more advertising to their dollars for their advertisers, et cetera. But if you read the fine print down there, it says, if advertising gambling, if you have a gambling problem, call this number. Okay. If you have a gambling problem, if you have a drinking problem, if you have a drug problem, well, why dangle the carrot in front of people in the first place? Money.
Makes money.
All
Arkansas doesn't
driven
need another drug problem.
by money. It has nothing to do with the police. It has nothing to do with taxes. Now, I'm, getting to the heart of the matter. Oh, there are going to be taxes collected. But if I come to you and I said, Jerry, I would like to have some kind of control over family council. So on the side, I'm going to be a donor. I'm going to be a George Soros, or I'm going to be a what's his name, Klaus, World Economic Forum. I want to have some influence on family council. So you can expect an additional $100,000 every year to your salary from me personally. And I would like to have a voice. You just sold your soul to the devil.
That's a good way to say it.
That's a good point. And that's what the marijuana industry wants all of our lawmakers to do, all of our policymakers, the TV station. I had a TV station decide not to interview me the other day up in North Arkansas because they said they were getting a lot of business from the marijuana industry for advertising. I was surprised they would admit it, but they said, we're going to be neutral. We're not going to interview you, Jerry, because we're getting all this money from the marijuana industry. Just multiply that over and over again and just see how deep they'll go down into our state.
Now, our conversation about issue 4 can filter on down, which we'll get to in a minute, into issue number 3, the Arkansas Religious Freedom Amendment. Now, do we have the freedom to discuss these things with you? Absolutely. There are things in the scriptures. This is biblically based voting. If the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? We have a right to talk about these things. You have a right to vote however you please, as long as you know what you're voting for. I had a situation that came to me because I was in the liquor business. I had to make a decision. I know I could no longer work in the industry because I saw the direct results of the alcohol destroying people's lives. I mean, I call on liquor stores. I could name some liquor stores, and I guarantee you people out there watching know these liquor stores. I knew the owners. I knew the clerks. And I read in the paper back when medical marijuana was the issue, there was one particular, and this was there were others, but this is the only one I remember because they were a public face on our local affiliate stations. And I guess they had to legally list the people. They invested in the growing of medical marijuana. So they're making a profit. But yet they're standing there, sitting there every day saying just the opposite. Be responsible. Victory over violence. Love. Let's minister to our communities. We're having weenie roasts and hot dog and hamburger trying to minister to the gang members. But they're making money off the marijuana industry. So that's talking out of both sides of their mouth.
It is. And once this gets here, people say, well, we could vote it out.
No.
I don't think so, because there's another measure on the ballot that would make it to where you got to get at least 60% of the vote to vote it out. If that measure passes and the marijuana goes in, then you're not going to really be able to get rid of it, because do you know how much the marijuana industry has spent trying to get us to vote for this thing? Over $10 million. They spent $2 million just to get to the ballot, and at least $8 million on those deceptive ads. Now that ought to tell you everything you need to know. If an industry is willing to spend that kind of money to get itself into Arkansas, they're not coming here for our benefit. It's for theirs.
As Paul Harvey used to say, join us tomorrow for Arkansas Live for the rest of the story, because there are a whole lot more things here on our agenda to answer about what goes on with Issue 4, Issue 3. So join us. Gentlemen are going to stay and be with me another day. Remember, Jesus is Lord over Arkansas and wherever you live, too.
Send your questions, comments, and testimonies to Happy Caldwell at Post Office Box 26207, Little Rock, Arkansas 72221, or email happycaldwell@vtntv.com. Remember to follow VTN on Facebook at VTN Your Arkansas Christian Connection, and follow Happy Caldwell on Twitter at Happy_Caldwell. VTN is on Roku. Search VTN in the channel store and add us to your lineup. Today's episode is available to watch on demand at VTNTV.com and click Watch. You can also watch VTN via live stream at VTNTV.com.